It is night, off the coast of Hawaii, and a diver named Keller Laros is in the water. He is 40 feet down with a group, torches cutting the dark, watching the reef. Then something moves at the edge of the light. A bottlenose dolphin, wild, untagged, not trained, approaches the group from open water and stops in front of him. He can see in the torchlight what it came for. A fishing hook is embedded in the pectoral fin. A length of line is wrapped around the body, pulling tight with every movement. The animal has been carrying this for a while. It holds still. It does not flee. It does not circle. It holds still in front of a human being it has never seen before and waits. What you are about to ask is the right question. Why would a wild animal, one whose entire evolutionary history is built on the assumption that large mammals approaching it mean danger, choose to approach a human, hold still, and wait? Not a trained animal. Not a dolphin that had been fed or conditioned or kept in a tank. A wild animal in open water that made a choice. Cases like this one, documented and studied and repeated across species across decades, keep forcing the same question to the surface. There is something happening when wild animals allow humans to help them, or seek that help out, or remember it afterward, that does not fit inside the explanations we normally use. The instinct to flee is ancient and deeply wired. The cost of getting it wrong, of trusting something that turns out to be a predator, is death. Every signal in an animal's nervous system is calibrated to treat an approaching large mammal as a threat until proven otherwise. And yet, the dolphin came toward the light. The question is what exactly it understood when it did. In 2006, researchers at the University of Washington began trapping wild American crows on campus. They wore a specific rubber mask while doing it, a caveman face bought at a costume shop. They trapped, banded, and released the birds, then put the mask away and continued walking around campus in neutral clothing. What happened over the following months, and then years, was documented with the precision of a long-form study and published in Animal Behavior in 2010. The crows did not forget the mask. They recognized it on sight, across seasons, across years. 2.5 years into the study, the full duration of the research, crows on the University of Washington campus were still mobbing anyone who wore the caveman face. Scolding, diving, recruiting other birds to join. Here is what makes this extraordinary. Crows that had never seen the original trapping event were also mobbing the mask. They had learned what the face meant from other crows. The reputation of one human, or rather one face, had spread through a population of wild birds through observation and communication alone. The same researchers noted a second pattern, studied less formally but documented consistently. People who regularly feed crows at specific locations receive gifts. Small objects, a piece of glass, a button, a shiny bottle cap, left precisely where the food is placed. The crow is not just taking, it is reciprocating. It has a social model of you, and in that model you have a relationship. The architecture that builds and transmits grudges is the same architecture that builds and transmits gratitude. The crow is keeping a ledger. In 2013, researchers at Kyoto University published a study in Nature Communications that asked a specific and uncomfortable question. Do monkeys evaluate the character of humans they observe? Not whether a human is good or bad to them personally. Whether a human is good or bad in general. Capuchin monkeys watched a scenario unfold in front of them. One human asked another human for help, in this case opening a container. The second human either helped willingly or refused. The monkeys watched. They had no stake in the outcome. They were just observers. Then the monkeys were offered food by both humans. Overwhelmingly, the monkeys took food from the helper and rejected food from the one who had refused, even though neither human had ever interacted with the monkeys themselves. The character judgment transferred. What you do to someone else tells a capuchin monkey something about what you are. There is a detail in this study that is easy to miss and hard to explain away. When the non-helper had been occupied, genuinely unable to help because they were busy with something else, the monkeys showed no avoidance. They took food equally from both humans. They were not simply tracking who did and did not help. They were distinguishing intentional refusal from incapacity. They were reading intent, the internal state that produced the behavior, not just the behavior itself. A Capuchin monkey watching a stranger interact with another stranger is doing something that sounds very much like moral reasoning. It is deciding what kind of entity you are, and it files that information away. This is where the evolutionary question becomes genuinely hard to answer. Wild animals did not co-evolve with humans in any cooperative sense. For most of our shared history, an approaching human meant one of a very small number of things, and none of them were good. The instinct to flee from us is ancient, wired deep, and for most of evolutionary time, correct. So where does this come from? Part of the answer may lie in the architecture of social intelligence itself. Animals that live in complex social groups, dolphins, elephants, primates, corvids, need to read intention continuously. They need to evaluate whether a group member approaching them is coming to groom or to challenge. They need to understand hierarchy, alliance, threat, support. They build working models of other minds as a basic function of daily survival. That cognitive architecture, the machinery that reads behavioral cues and maps them to internal states, may simply transfer to humans because it is flexible by design. Evolution built a tool for reading social intention. The tool works on any subject that produces recognizable signals. A dolphin approaching a diver and holding still is not doing something miraculous. It is doing something very ordinary, reading cues and applying it to an unusual subject. The signal is the signal regardless of the body it comes from. In 2014, Joshua Plotnick and Franz de Waal published the first empirical evidence of consolation behavior in Asian elephants. Over nearly a year, they documented wild and semi-captive elephants at a camp in northern Thailand. When one elephant showed signs of distress, ears spread, tail raised, agitated movement, other elephants nearby would approach. They would reach their trunks toward the distressed animal's mouth and temporal glands. They would produce soft vocalizations used nowhere else in the elephant's behavioral repertoire, sounds reserved for this moment and nothing else. They were consoling. The behavior matched what has been documented in great apes, in canines, in certain corvids. Consolation, the active recognition of another's distress and the attempt to alleviate it, appears to be a convergent feature of complex social cognition. Multiple lineages, separated by hundreds of millions of years of evolution, arrived at the same behavior because the problem it solves, living in a group where others are in pain, is a problem every complex social species eventually faces. Rangers in African wildlife reserves have documented the same behavior directed toward humans. Elephants covering injured human bodies with branches and leaves, the same mourning behavior they perform for their own dead. Herds that slow near injured humans, move carefully around them, remain in the area until help arrives. The boundary that separates the circle of care, the edge of who counts as someone whose distress deserves a response, does not appear to end at the species line. It extends further than we thought. In December 2011, a humpback whale tangled in crab trap lines off San Francisco held still for over an hour while 4 divers cut through the ropes wrapped around its body. When the last line came free, the whale did not disappear into the dark. It circled back. It approached each diver individually, slowly, deliberately. One diver described being nudged gently. Another said the whale positioned itself so that its eye, the size of a grapefruit, was level with his face, and held there, looking. What passed between them in that moment we cannot say with certainty. But here is what the science does say. The machinery for recognizing intention, for tracking character, for remembering kindness across time, that machinery is not uniquely human. It is present, in varying degrees, in a much wider circle of minds than we have been willing to admit. Every encounter you have with a wild animal becomes part of that animal's record of what humans are. The crow is watching you right now. It has been keeping notes.